Hey everyone, welcome back to Small Trees. It's been just over a month since we made a mini greenhouse and put some fresh cuttings in it. Today we're going to see how they've done compared to some that I placed in the ground outside at the same time. If you haven't seen the previous video, I'd suggest checking it out because this increased my cutting success rate for pomegranates very significantly. Before I show you the greenhouse, let's look and see how many cuttings rooted that were left outside in the growing beds. If you're following along at home, I wouldn't disturb any cuttings until they're showing signs of strong growth. I'm only uprooting these now for your education. I'll speed this up slightly, but as you can tell, about half of these cuttings rooted, and of those that did root, many did not have strong root growth yet. These were given the same pre-treatment that the greenhouse cuttings were given. That is, all of them were cut cleanly, and they all had root hormone applied before being placed in the ground or in the greenhouse. The larger cutting on the right side was struck last year, and it's already established. It will be allowed to grow freely for a few years. It seems the cuttings that were about pencil-sized or larger had a higher success rate than smaller cuttings. We'll see if the same rule applies to the greenhouse cuttings. Spring has been here for almost a month now, and the greenhouse has stayed on the heating pad for the whole time. Humidity inside the greenhouse has stayed high despite a few chilly days here and there. These were sprayed with Daconil, an antifungal, shortly after the first video was made. And I also placed some moss in here because I'm trying to find the best way to propagate moss quickly. As you can see, every cutting placed in this greenhouse is leafed out. This is a good sign, but it doesn't mean that they've all rooted. Cuttings will use up sugars stored in the trunk in an effort to produce leaves before roots are formed. There's not really an easy way for me to check these cuttings. I'm just doing my best to keep from harming any new roots as I go. This first cutting looks very promising. Its root system is already much better than most of the ground cuttings, and it has roots all around the trunk. Many of the ground cuttings only had roots growing from one side of the trunk for some reason. I'm going to speed up the rest of this footage, but I'll slow it down to show each cutting's root system. At the end, I'll compare these with the ground cuttings and give my opinion on which is better. This is one of only 2 cuttings from this batch that hadn't fully rooted yet. They'll stay in here in another couple weeks. Here's the second. It's the only cutting that has no roots at all. Here are the best cuttings from each group. I think that it's safe to say that the humidity and bottom heat provided by the greenhouse have made a big difference. Out of the cuttings in the greenhouse, one did not root, two were not quite ready to be potted, and 11 rooted fully. When compared to the cuttings left outside with no ground heat, 3 of 7 that I checked had some roots on them, but none of them had grown enough roots so far to survive. The cuttings from the greenhouse are ready to be potted. I will keep them out of direct sunlight for a couple of weeks to make sure the leaves don't dry out. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll have updates coming soon on several projects that we started earlier this year. Since most of us have some downtime right now, if you have any topic that you'd like covered or anything that you'd like to see me do, leave it in the comments and I'll take a look at it. Until next time.